The rope dug into her neck, coarse and unyielding, scraping her fragile skin as the bullies tightened the knot. The farm girl's eyes widened, not from fear of death but from the crushing betrayal of humanity. The chilling laughter of the boys echoed across the empty fields, their shadows stretched long under the fading sunset. They thought they had broken her. They thought she was alone. What they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that someone was watching, someone who could turn the entire earth into a graveyard for anyone who dared to harm her. And he was only 47 seconds away. Life on the farm had never been easy, but she loved it. Her hands bore the marks of hard work, her clothes carried the scent of hay and soil, and her heart was stitched with resilience. She had been raised to endure, to give without expecting, to survive storms without complaint. But she also carried a quiet strength, a strength the bullies mistook for weakness. They came often, sneering at her plain clothes, mocking her calloused hands, calling her cowgirl or barn rat. She ignored them, as her husband had once taught her, never waste your spirit on those who thrive on attention. But this day was different. They didn't just want to insult her. They wanted to crush her completely. It started when she walked home from the market, carrying a basket of fresh eggs. The boys, 5 of them, bigger, louder, crueler, blocked the narrow dirt road. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered brute named Travis, smirked at her. "What's the rush, farm girl? Gotta feed your pigs before sundown." The others laughed, circling her like vultures. She tightened her grip on the basket and tried to walk past, but one of them shoved her shoulder, causing the eggs to spill and shatter across the ground. The laughter grew harsher. Her heart pounded, but she refused to give them the satisfaction of tears. She knelt, quietly gathering the broken shells, her silence burning them more than any insult could. That's when Travis snapped his fingers, and 2 boys grabbed her arms. She fought, twisting and kicking, but they were stronger. They dragged her toward an old oak tree that stood like a silent witness in the field. The rope hung there, left over from kids' games or perhaps darker uses long forgotten. Her stomach tightened as she realized what they intended. "Let's see how tough the farm girl really is," Travis sneered, tying the rope into a crude noose. The others hooted and hollered, their eyes glittering with malice. She struggled, her voice breaking as she shouted for them to stop, but they only laughed harder. Rough hands forced the rope around her neck, and the scratch of it made her throat burn. Her feet kicked against the earth as they pulled, hoisting her just high enough that her toes barely scraped the dirt. Her lungs screamed for air. The world blurred. Their laughter was fading into an echo of cruelty when 47 seconds. That's all the time it took. A truck roared into the field, its engine growling like an animal unleashed. Gravel flew as the tires skidded to a halt. The door slammed open, and a man leapt out. His boots hit the earth with the weight of thunder, his presence alone silencing the laughter. The bullies froze, rope still in their hands, as their eyes locked on the figure storming toward them. He wasn't just any man. He was her husband, and he was a Navy SEAL. His name was Jack, a man forged by fire and ocean, trained to survive in the darkest corners of the world. His gaze was colder than steel, sharper than a blade, and in that moment, he wasn't a farmer's husband, he was a predator unleashed. The seconds dragged heavy in the air as he took in the scene, his wife choking, her eyes desperate, the bullies clutching the rope. He moved with terrifying speed. One hand yanked a knife from his belt, and with a single slash, the rope fell away. She collapsed to the ground, coughing violently, air rushing back into her burning lungs. Jack's arm caught her before she hit the dirt, his touch gentle against her trembling body. But when he lifted his eyes back to the boys, there was nothing gentle left. "Which one of you wants to die first?" His voice was low, deadly calm, and it chilled the bullies to their core. Travis tried to bluster, stepping forward with a nervous grin. "Hey man, it was just a joke. We weren't." The words cut off as Jack closed the distance in a blink. His hand gripped Travis's collar, lifting him clean off the ground as if he weighed nothing. Travis gasped, his legs kicking in the air, eyes bulging as Jack's stare bored into him. "You put a rope around her neck," Jack said, every syllable slow and precise. "That's not a joke. That's a death sentence. Do you have any idea what I do to men who cross that line?" The others stood frozen, their bravado dissolving into fear. Jack dropped Travis hard onto the ground, the boy landing with a grunt. Before he could scramble away, Jack's boot pinned him to the dirt. He leaned down, his voice like gravel. "In the teams, we deal with enemies who think they're tough. Men who carry guns, bombs, knives. Men who've ended lives, and you know what happens to them. He pressed harder, making Travis wince. They learn real quick what it means to face a seal. You think your little game makes you dangerous. You have no idea what dangerous looks like. One of the boys tried to bolt, but Jack's eyes snapped to him. Move, and you'll wish you hadn't. The boy froze, trembling. Jack stood, pulling Travis up by the scruff of his shirt. He shoved him toward the others, who stumbled back in terror. Look at her, Jack ordered, pointing to his wife, who was still gasping, her hand at her bruised throat. You see what you did. You see the rope burns. That's on you, every one of you, and if she hadn't had me, if she hadn't had someone to come for her, she'd be gone right now. You would have killed her. The boys stammered, muttering apologies, their voices shaking. But Jack's face didn't soften. His fists clenched, his whole body a storm barely contained. Apologies don't erase scars, he growled. He stepped closer, his shadow looming over them. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get down on your knees, every one of you. Right here, right now. Fear etched deep into their faces. They dropped, kneeling in the dirt like cowards before a king. Jack circled them like a wolf, his eyes never leaving their bowed heads. You're going to remember this moment for the rest of your lives. You're going to remember the girl you tried to break, and the husband who came for her. And if I ever hear that you so much as look in her direction again, he leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper that still carried like thunder. I'll show you what it really means to hang. Silence blanketed the field, broken only by the farm girl's ragged breaths. Jack finally turned away from the boys, kneeling beside his wife. His hand brushed her cheek, tender and trembling despite the fury still coursing through him. I've got you, he whispered. They'll never touch you again. Her eyes, wet with tears, met his, and for the first time that day, she felt safe. Truly safe. Behind them, the bullies scrambled away, running faster than they ever had in their lives, the echo of Jack's voice chasing them like a ghost they could never outrun. The farm was silent again, but everything had changed. For in those 47 seconds, they had learned that evil laughs until justice answers, and when justice wears the uniform of a seal, no cruelty can stand against it. The rope lay in the dirt, torn and lifeless, a symbol of cruelty defeated. Jack's hands lingered on his wife's shoulders, steadying her as her breaths grew steadier. The bruises on her throat made his jaw clench tighter, rage burning in his veins, but he forced himself to stay focused on her. He had seen soldiers in war zones collapse after surviving the unthinkable. He knew she needed his presence more than his fury. He whispered her name softly, again and again, grounding her back into safety. But the fire in his chest refused to die. His mind, sharpened by years of missions where hesitation meant death, replayed the image of those boys pulling on that rope. Civilians, teenagers perhaps, but their intentions had been darker than they realized. Jack's training taught him something crucial. Evil wasn't defined by age. It was defined by choice. And those boys had chosen cruelty. His wife tried to speak, her voice raspy, but he placed a finger gently to her lips. Don't strain, just breathe, I'll take care of the rest. The bullies hadn't run far. They lingered at the edge of the field, huddled together, whispering frantically. Jack could hear them even from a distance, his ears trained to catch whispers in jungles, deserts, and enemy compounds. He stood slowly, like a storm gathering its final strength. Stay here, he told her, his voice calm but unbreakable. This isn't over. She clutched his sleeve weakly, shaking her head. She knew what he was capable of. She had heard the stories, seen the scars. Jack, don't. But he gave her a look that silenced her protest. They need to understand. If they don't, they'll do this again, to you, or someone else. And I won't let that happen. He walked toward them with measured steps, each footfall heavy, deliberate. The boys froze as he approached, their courage unraveling with every second. Travis tried to straighten his shoulders, attempting to reclaim the arrogance that had fueled his cruelty. We said we were sorry, he muttered, though his voice cracked. Jack stopped a few feet away, his shadow falling over all of them. He studied each face, memorizing them as he had memorized the faces of enemies across the globe. He had an uncanny ability to make a man feel stripped of his bravado, reduced to nothing but fear under the weight of his stare. And right now, these boys felt it in their bones. You think, sorry, fixes what you did. Jack's voice was controlled, but behind it was a restrained thunder that made them shiver. You put a rope around a woman's neck. Do you even understand what that means? Do you know what happens to people who commit acts like that in the world I come from? One of the younger boys whimpered. Travis swallowed hard. We didn't mean. Jack's hand shot out, gripping the boy by the shirt front, hauling him close until their faces were inches apart. His voice dropped to a whisper, lethal in its softness. Intent doesn't matter when the rope tightens. You played with death, and if I had been 47 seconds later, she would have been gone. He shoved the boy back, not hard enough to harm, but hard enough to send him sprawling in the dirt. The others flinched. Jack's eyes narrowed. You want to understand consequences? I'll show you consequences. He reached into the bed of his truck and pulled out a coil of rope, the same kind he used for hauling hay bales. The bully's eyes widened as he held it up, letting the length uncoil and slap against the ground. You ever wonder what it feels like to be on the other end? Travis paled. You wouldn't. Jack stepped closer, his tone ice. I've seen men with blood on their hands beg for mercy in languages I didn't even understand. Do you think I can't make you beg? The silence was suffocating. Jack didn't actually intend to harm them, but they didn't know that. He wanted them to carry this fear forever, the memory branded into their minds stronger than any scar. He tossed the rope onto the ground at their feet. Kneel, he ordered. They obeyed instantly, knees hitting the dirt, their bodies trembling. Jack walked around them, pacing like a wolf circling prey. His mind flickered back to Bud's training, where instructors had screamed into his ears as he shivered in the freezing surf, testing not his muscles but his soul. That training had taught him something vital. Sometimes fear was the only teacher men listened to. You'll carry this with you, he said, voice deep and steady. Every time you see a rope, you'll remember tonight. Every time you laugh at someone weaker than you, you'll remember how quickly that laughter turned to silence. You'll remember that the farm girl you mocked has someone who will burn the world to ash for her. He stopped in front of Travis, staring down at the boy who had led the cruelty. And you, Travis, you'll remember that when you lead others into darkness, you become responsible for their souls as much as your own. You put this rope around her neck. That doesn't go away, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Travis nodded rapidly, sweat dripping down his face. Jack crouched low, his eyes level with theirs. Now get out of my sight before I change my mind. They scrambled to their feet, tripping over each other as they bolted into the distance, disappearing into the fading twilight. Jack stood tall, the quiet returning to the field, broken only by the sound of crickets and his wife's still uneven breathing. When he returned to her, she reached for his hand. Jack, you scared them half to death. They needed to be scared, he said simply, lifting her gently into his arms. People like that only learn when the lesson cuts deep. As he carried her toward the truck, her head resting against his chest, memories of distant battlefields filled his mind. He had seen cruelty in every corner of the world, warlords, insurgents, men who thrived on breaking the innocent. And every time, he had stood in their way. He never thought that same battle would find him here, on his own soil, against boys who should have known better. But as he looked down at the woman who was his anchor, his reason for surviving every mission, he knew one thing with certainty. Whether it was war zones across the ocean or a quiet farm field, no one would ever harm her and walk away unscarred.